Hello and welcome to English Through Experience. I'm ETETutor. This is a video for GCSE students preparing for their transactional writing task for GCSE English Language Paper 2. So it's been inspired by the many comments I've seen on the internet. So lots on Twitter, lots of students very unhappy with the amount of quotes they need to learn for GCSE English Literature. So what I thought I'd do is create a task around that, something that people seem to be quite passionate about. So we can break it down, have a look at how you can approach the question, have a look at the assessment objectives, and I will talk you through what I'd be expecting to see as a GCSE English language examiner. All right then. Okay, so this time we're looking at the WJEC Eduqas format. Lots of students are interested to know how the different exam boards work, but rest assured, for this writing piece, this transactional writing, you're all being assessed in the same way. It's just that the questions are structured slightly differently. So let's have a look then. Section B, 40 marks. Answer questions 2.1 and question 2.2. In this section, you will be assessed for the quality of your writing skills. For each question, 12 marks are awarded for communication and organisation, 8 marks are awarded for vocabulary, sentence structure, punctuation and spelling. Think about the purpose and audience for your writing. You should aim to write about 300 to 400 words for each task. Okay, so your challenge here is really to do with timing. Both of these pieces are worth the same amount of marks, so you really need to make sure that you keep a close eye on the clock, and you should be planning your work. It's better if you can do it on the exam paper. What your plan's going to be is just a very brief idea of what's in your introduction, what the main paragraphs are going to include and what their focus will be, and then what you're going to say in your conclusion. This will help you ensure that you keep on track, and it will also help with that timing, because if you're running out of time and you can see your conclusion in a plan, chances are you'll be able to get there and get it done more easily than if you didn't have the plan. So let's have a look at the statement that you have been given. The closed book GCSE English Literature exam is a memory test. So much time is spent learning quotes, we should be spending more time developing our critical skills. So the first part ends with that quite angry exclamation mark. So you'd make sure you want to address that, because that's really their sort of summary of their statement. The second part focuses on how much time is spent learning these quotations, which I'm sure is something that most of you can recognise. And then the final part is a little bit more positive, where it says that we should be spending more time developing critical skills. So as an examiner, within these two responses, I would like to see each part addressed in some way. You will probably do that naturally. Okay? So let's have a look at our first question. Write a lively article for your school/college magazine with the heading, Learning Quotes is a Total Waste of Time. So again, note that exclamation mark. There's some passion involved here. And hopefully, because this is something you can relate to, you'd be able to work with that. So in terms of what's required of an article, in terms of that form, obviously there's certain things. So try and think of them quickly now. Hopefully you are thinking headline, bullet points, statistics, tagline, byline, maybe even including the date. It could be significant here, the date couldn't it? If this article is written in June or May, it probably is going to be different to one written further away from the exams. So that's what we're going to be looking for in terms of awarding those 12 marks for communication and organisation. Obviously, the paragraphs within an article are really important to guide the reader through. Hopefully that makes sense and it's not too daunting. Let's have a look at 2.2. So write a letter / email to the Secretary of State for Education, Minister of Education, exploring the learning of quotations for GCSE English Literature. So the two tasks will be related in some way. So this time, what I've done here is given you letter / email. Now, it's unlikely this will be like this in the exam. They haven't done that before. But I thought it would be useful for you as students to be able to pick between the two. So pick the one you're less familiar with and have a go at writing to that form. The conventions are very similar. You are still trying to communicate something directly to an individual, so that doesn't change. It's just the layout and the format that changes slightly. So hopefully that makes sense and it feels manageable. If you are preparing at the moment, it'd be great if you had a go at creating some plans, even if you don't manage to write the whole piece in full. When you're creating plans, it's a good opportunity to experiment. So within the plans at the moment, as you're preparing, you might want to include the statistics you might use. You might want to make a note of where the bullet points are going to be. You might want to actually write out some quotations. So that could be, in terms of this one, it could be quotes from students, teachers, experts in the field. It could be somebody from a mental health charity, a youth worker. So have a good practice doing your plans. Even better if you can write them out in full. And anything you do, have a go at sharing it in the comment section below. You'll be helping each other then, and hopefully I will have a chance to get back to you. Right, if you're freaking out and you're thinking, oh, I'm struggling for ideas here, don't worry, because I've put you some sources together. So we're going to have a look at some sources now, and then I'm really going to hone in on the marks for vocabulary, sentence structure and punctuation, coming from the point of view of the examiner, and have a look at those assessment objectives. Okay. After the first year of this exam series, somebody put together a petition to Parliament saying, change the GCSE English Literature exam from closed book to open book. And they put forward their arguments here. So it could be that some of these things help inspire you. What I am going to do with this little bit of text is respectfully just analyse it in the way I would do if I was marking it as an exam piece. So we can see they've started off putting forward their overall argument that students are struggling. And they have then gone on to say, because of this, many failed. Now, what would be great if this was a transactional writing piece is some statistics to support that statement, to make it more believable. And then we can see here that they're saying, how can they expect us to remember quotes from 15 poems, plus how to analyse them, plus remembering the whole plot, themes, characters, and quotes from another book? So they've got some nice repetition in there, that repetition of the word plus, and then they've got a list. So these are definite language devices I would expect to see in most responses. They're quite straightforward ones, and they've used them pretty well here, haven't they? Then they go on to get even more passionate about it, focusing really on the student's well-being, which is perhaps something that you could focus on in a paragraph in your response. So we've got, is it really fair that students have to remember so much whilst also doing revision for other exams? It is important to know how to do all that is asked in exams. That's nice, they've given some positive, then they've come in with a but. But when in life will you ever have to remember lots of information about lots of text, then be expected to recall it perfectly under pressurised conditions, on top of loads of other stresses, then write about it for strangers to judge whether or not you are worthy of a good grade or not? So towards the end there, you can see that perhaps they've got a little bit over emotional and they've started using more everyday language. So if you have a quick look at, well, the whole of that paragraph really, can you pick out any more colloquial words? I would say that on top of loads of other stresses is more everyday language than the rest of their piece. So it's all about sustaining that tone throughout the piece of writing. But here we've got some nice vocabulary. That word recall is perfect in this scenario. So if I was marking this, I would definitely be commenting on that as a good vocabulary choice. So I'm guessing most of you feel a little bit like this person who's put the petition forward. I agree with a lot of what they're saying. Obviously, I am one of these strangers who judge your work, but don't think that all examiners think that what you're doing is the best way for you to learn. We're here to do our job, which is to mark the work we're given alongside those assessment objectives. We don't have any say in them. The petition's closed now. It ran for 6 months and it did receive the amount of signatures required to be put forward to Parliament. So it's 100,000 signatures. So if anybody wants to have another go, they can do, because as you can see, the petition was rejected. We've got the response from Parliament here. And I would suggest that you pause this or have a look in the description box where you'll be able to find it. There's loads of really advanced vocabulary in here, the kind of words that will really amp up your grade in the exam. And it's structured very well in terms of each paragraph has a very clear focus. And this is something that we'll be wanting from your work as well. Whether you agree with what they've said is another question. Now, in your actual response, it might be that you could come up with some ideas of your own about how to tackle it. As you can probably guess by the fact that I've made this video, I feel really passionately about it. I don't think it's a way of encouraging a lifelong love of literature. I don't think it's making the students want to engage with the text. I think it's making them feel stressed out, like that petition suggested. But in terms of a better idea, I'm struggling. I thought possibly we could have exam papers that had a quotation bank for some of the texts. So it would reduce this learning word for word that you're having to do. If you knew that, say, you go in for your Shakespeare and there's going to be a range of quotations there for you to use and copy into your responses. Some students aiming high might still want to learn their own quotations as well, but it gives a little bit more flexibility, especially for students who have exam anxiety or students who just feel that they don't perform well in exam conditions. So would love to hear your thoughts on the idea of a quotation bank. Now we come to the assessment objectives, which I know I mentioned earlier I'd focus in on. So for these transactional writing pieces and your creative writing, it's AO5 and AO6 that we're looking at. And we'll start with AO6 because that's a bit more straightforward. This is where we give you a mark for your vocabulary, your sentence structures. So therefore that's your punctuation and grammar. And we're also looking at your spelling. Now, when I mark a piece of work, very quickly I can establish which band the student's work falls into, and then I'm tweaking the mark. So I'm going, say if I've put them in band 2, I'll say, right, are they closer to band 1 or are they closer to band 3? And I will go back through and reassess the work, focusing in on a few things that make it very easy for me to justify the mark I'm giving to you. So I'll look at the words again, I'll look at the vocabulary, I'll look at the vocabulary overall within the piece, and potentially maybe able to say, right, it's definitely closer to band 3, so they're going to get a mark at the top of band 2. It might be a bit technical, but if you've got a copy of a mark scheme, it'll make more sense. So what I'm saying is vocabulary is really, really important. It's one of the reasons I always encourage my students to proofread their work, not just checking for errors, but trying to improve vocabulary. If at the last minute you cross out a few words and replace them with much more helpful words, words that communicate your meaning more clearly, then it may be that I can award marks for those changes. In terms of punctuation, that's something you can think of in your proofreading as well. So in our statement this time, the first sentence ended with that exclamation mark, which made it seem quite angry. Go through your work and see if there's an opportunity anywhere to include an exclamation mark if it's going to help enhance the meaning you're trying to communicate. Other good ones to try and incorporate are ellipsis and semicolons. Those are ones that students use less frequently, so they will make your responses stand out. Then for AO5, this is sort of the text as a whole. So what we're looking for there is really about your organisation and your ideas. So you've got something interesting to say. Hopefully there's some creativity in the way you communicate it. There's some flair. It all hinges together. And you have organised those ideas in a logical way using a range of paragraph lengths, possibly including things directly related to the form you're writing in, like bullet points, and that those features support the text. They help it hold all together. That's that last bit at the end, coherence and cohesion of texts. Just want something that all links together, it all holds together and forms an overall argument. Okay, hopefully that's helped a little bit. If you're still struggling, there's some letter writing practice where I've suggested a few more questions, and then there's videos on different language techniques that you can use. So that's where we'll go through things like statistics, adding in the opinion of an expert. So say with this one, it could be somebody a youth worker who's experienced young people coming to them really upset about the exam, that sort of thing. If you are a student who is still learning quotations, then there are 2 videos I've made that might help. So the first one's all about which ones to pick, and the second one is about how to commit them to memory. If you're a 2019 student, this part's over for you, so hopefully you're feeling quite relieved. Alright then, thank you all for watching. Would be great to get some comments. If anybody wants to send plans or snippets of their work, I will try to respond to you. If you want to hit like, that would be great. I'm guessing nobody's loving their revision videos, but it does really help indicate to other students that it's worth a watch. So if you've learned anything, please hit like so I know that I'm doing stuff that's actually helping you. Alright then, bye for now.